Have you ever thought how each one of us practices faith every day, whether we realize it or not? We get in our cars, put the keys in the ignition, and trust the car will start. We reach for a light switch and trust the lights will come on. Faith is not simply a religious word reserved for church. It is a power to be used in life. However, as James reminds us in James chapter 1 verses 2 and 3, we may go through various trials that test our faith in order to bring about endurance in our lives. The wise man in Proverbs chapter 17 and verse 3 said, "The refining pot is for silver and the furnace for gold, but the Lord tests hearts." During the winter of 1940, Josephine Kuntz's husband, a textile worker and house painter, was unemployed because of a seasonal layoff and the weather. Money was not to be had. To make matters worse, their 18-month-old daughter Rachel was recovering from pneumonia and was not doing well. The doctor insisted Rachel eat a hard-boiled egg every day. Even that was beyond the Kuntz's reach. One of Rachel's friends at church said they should pray for the eggs. Although a church-going family, this was not something they had ever done, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Josephine got on her knees one morning and prayed, asking God to provide the eggs her daughter needed. According to her story, as published in the book Snowflakes in September, Mrs. Kuntz was busy in the kitchen later that morning when she heard cackling coming from her front yard. There by the fence sat a large red hen she had never seen before. The hen laid an egg, got up, and went on down the road. The same thing happened the next day and continued to happen for almost 2 weeks. During that time, Rachel's health improved, the weather improved, and Josephine's husband returned to work. The day after her husband returned to work, the hen quit coming. What can anyone do under those circumstances except thank God? God takes care of His people. It may not always be seen in such dramatic ways, but the Bible promises that God will and does care for His own. In Deuteronomy chapter 32, Moses teaches the people of Israel a song to remind them of how God had cared and would care for them. In verse 11 he said, "Like an eagle that stirs up its nest, that hovers over its young, he spread his wings and caught them. He carried them on his pinions." Allow me to share an application of this for your life and mine. Eagles are born to soar in the sky, not sit in the nest. Young eagles obviously spend all of their early days in the confines of the nest as the parents care for them. I am sure they feel comfortable there. When the juvenile eaglets in a nest are old enough to leave the nest, the adult eagle will push off the nest and hover over it, flapping its wings for the young ones to imitate. They may flap their wings, but they will not leave the nest. However, the adult eagle will soon begin tearing up the nest, making it uncomfortable to the young eaglets. The young eaglets will begin to perch on the edge of the nest, perhaps stretching and flapping their wings, but not really wanting to leave. Then comes the moment they do. They may have been pushed off by one of their siblings or simply take off on their own. Flapping their wings, they attempt to fly as they have seen the adult birds doing, sometimes not with great success. They may falter and begin to lose altitude as if they will crash into the earth. Watching from a distance, the adult eagle swoops beneath the young bird, catching it on its back, and flies up higher, then turns to let the young bird try again until it has mastered flight and soaring. How apt an illustration of how God is dealing with us, testing our faith in order to grow our faith and bring us victory in our lives. You see, God has sent the best demonstration to us in the form of His Son Jesus. Jesus came to us, the Word becoming flesh, as John says in John 1:14, being God with us as the angel announced to Joseph in Matthew chapter 1, verse 23. God may allow things to enter our lives to make us uncomfortable. Job said in Job chapter 30 and verse 27, "Days of affliction confront me." We are created to grow, according to 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 2, and fulfill what God has for us. As the Apostle Paul reminds us in Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 10, we are His workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we would walk in them. However, we must make the decision to move, to grow, to leave the nest. An adult eagle can teach its young, but it cannot fly for them. Galatians chapter 6 and verse 5 tells us, "Each one shall bear his own load." When we make that choice to move, to step out in faith, to trust God, He will be there for us and with us. Jesus promised in Matthew chapter 28 and verse 20, He would be with us always. The Apostle Paul faced many trials, but he kept his faith in God, and as he told Timothy in 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 11, "Out of them all the Lord rescued me." The psalmist said in Psalm 34 and verse 19, "Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all." Have you ever thought that in all the things you may be going through, that God may be trying to teach you to fly? You can resist it, but ultimately you will have to do something. Why not consider trusting Him, trusting what He has given you, and trusting His presence with you? May God bless you as you soar in honor and glory for Him.